Howdy, friends. Welcome to the Mindful Photography Show. If you've shown up here this morning thinking that life don't match the brochure, you are in the right place. We're gonna we're gonna make sense out of some of this mayhem that we're all going through. And if you've come here this morning thinking that there's some bad parts that you just love to lop off, you are definitely in the right place. We're going to talk about that verse in Romans where it says that God works all things together for good for those who believe. And if you've shown up here this morning and your closet maybe looks like an infomercial for the color beige, you are definitely in the right place. We are going to break some color rules today. Friends, if we haven't met, my name is Joe Van Wyk, and I'm the author of the Mindful Photography Field Guide, 15 Smartphone Photography Practices for Inner Peace. Today, we're continuing in the first section of the field guide called Follow the Light, and we're in practice number 3 called No Matchy, No Matchy. Could you tell? What do you think? Yeah? How'd I do this morning? Oh my gosh, the cringe factor of putting these colors together for me. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. I'll show you why too. Yuck. Mindful photography helps us access God's peace. I like to think of it as a scavenger hunt for God's beauty. It's a it's a science inspired practice that helps us calm our mind and to feel peace in our senses. So that's what we're going to do here today while we're discussing no matchy color. Why don't we start today by getting centered in the spirit together? Those of you who have been here before know the drill. Hand on our heart. 3 belly breaths. We're going to talk a little bit today about opposite to emotion action, or just opposite action, like the last thing you want to do looking at this mismatched color guy right now is actually follow along. But that opposite action is what takes us from sitting on the sofa in worry and fear and pain to taking action. And that's why this little gesture is so important. And it was at the beginning of every practice, because it's not only something that you can do preparing for an actual mindful photography practice, but it's just a little technique, a little therapy, a little mindfulness exercise that you can use anytime, at a stoplight, at the office when you just want to hide. Just hand on your heart, 3 belly breaths. I like to pat my heart and reassurance. Right on. So let's dive right into it. This is just a little chunk of videos and photos that'll be a good intro in us looking for these things that don't match. While you're watching this, I'm going to talk about some life things that didn't seem to match, but also some color things we're going to see that might be cringeworthy. So take a look. The first thing that we see here is, see Frankie the Doodle. He's right over there. That was when he was about he was about 6, 7 months old, and that was 5.5 years ago. This right here was the beginning of Frankie and me coming to Colorado. That right there is a video that I took the first night in this trailer right here, talking things through, man. So what you're looking at here, these no matchy things right here, these bad parts or bad parts of life or me or whatever, this was very unexpected, that I would find myself in my mid 50s single again and leaving Texas right in the middle of the lockdowns and moving to Colorado. And here I was. So living in a trailer, that was kind of new. Yeah, I picked up the trailer here in Colorado and just I had no earthly idea where life was going at this point, and talk about feeling like something's wrong. There's no possible way this could have been God's will for my life. And yet here I am 5.5 years later. What in the world would laundry have to do with this idea of no matchy? Well, I'll tell you, just did this whole routine yesterday. And that is that I used to have a really nice washer dryer and it was right there and I could do laundry all the time. So the idea that I've had to go to a laundromat every week, week and a half or so for all of these years, that's been an incredibly humbling experience. It's exhausting. It it's just something that's it's like irritating and it don't fit. And I grapple with this virtually every time I do it. I still grapple with this, that this doesn't match. This doesn't match. But over time, I guess I have come to appreciate things a little more, practice gratitude a little more. So here's an example. While I'm waiting for the wash or while I'm waiting for the wash to dry, Frankie and always go we always go on a walk down at this park right on the Roaring Fork River, and it's enjoyable and it's a time to be present together and to bless him. And then coming home and folding clothes. So yeah, that's part of it. It takes a long time, and it's about clothes folding. So there you go, but I've appreciated, hey, thank you, Lord. Thank you that I have clothes. Thank you that I have something to fold. I think part of how I've come to acceptance about this is really reframing my whole reference of what I thought life was going to be like. And what you see right here was this happened, I think, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I went to the very campground that I landed at when I first came here, and it was completely empty. And I had a little burning ceremony. There were documents, there were love letters from multiple relationships. There was a lot of stuff. And the crazy thing about all of that stuff that I was burning right here, all that paperwork and letters, and I mean, there was some heavy stuff there. There was some psychiatrist stuff and analysis on trying to figure out what was wrong with me, whatever. But I swear all of that was sitting right under that bed over there and right underneath me every night as I slept. And I'm not saying that there's spiritual forces in play there, but it was just symbolic of, heck no, I'm not going to sleep on this anymore, baby. This stuff is going up in flames. Burning ceremony. There you go. And hope started to come in. I started to really appreciate where I live. I mean, look at that. In a month or so, I'll probably be seeing that scene right there. No snow right now. We're having a mild fall so far, but I mean, look at the stuff that happens here at this very vantage point that I'm talking to you. Yep, I was on the phone with a guy a few years ago. I was like, "Oh my gosh, hang on just a second." And then I lift my camera and boom, there's a little bear coming across. As Frankie enjoys our trailer so much in our life together. That right there, talk about no matchy. That taking a photograph of that and what that represents to me represents a trailer, and I'm still living in it. Doesn't look like this was very temporary at all. And look, it's got a rusty hitch there, meaning some time's gone by. Didn't expect that. That didn't seem to match. So now we go into sort of life things, environmental things that, quote, don't match. Here, where these color rules come into play, right? Why doesn't this match? Why is it that these hokas, I could hardly find anything to match the hokas? Well, there's a lot of no matchy out there in nature too. But the crazy thing about it is the more you try to look for it, the more you go, wait, maybe that doesn't do such a bad job of matching after all. Would you put these colors together? Talk about no match, that vibrant, I don't know, reflective, luminescent color that you see in construction sites and whatnot. No matchy, no matchy. You start to notice, oh, there's kind of beauty in things that don't match. So that's what I'm doing here, making beautiful things out of things that don't belong and don't match. More of that construction tape. Love that. Look at this right here. I mean, look at that. Look at the green, that kind of aqua color over here on the right, and then note the green in the tree. Just those colors don't match at all. But yet you would totally find those colors in nature. I'm not sure if you'd find this though. So big time no matchy of these construction signs. They don't match for a reason. They have a very specific purpose, right? And just noticing colors that stand out. That's all we're doing here. Just noticing colors that stand out, noticing colors that punch the scene as you're looking around, taking photographs, colorful photographs, maybe that have never been shot before, but you're recognizing them. Here is just the idea of these different materials, different reflective materials where the color is just really in your face, like the opposite of some natural beige environmental color. I love this. This is in this alley kind of in downtown Glenwood Springs, this funky dwelling, whatever it is, and just that great green door. Love that. Here, they wanted matchy so badly that I guess they painted those Adirondack chairs, and they also painted the fake foliage there. Look at that. Ooh, gross. This greenish whatever color against beige. No matchy. What colors are standing out? What is standing out? Look at that red and that green next to these earth tones over to the left. Check out these colors. Which ones don't go? I wouldn't have put that together. I wouldn't have put that together. And I wouldn't have put that together. Yuck. But yet, somehow, when they're all put together and you stand back, they kind of go together, eh? Beautiful, beautiful. Project over at the local elementary school. Here's the beginning of the no matchy practice in the mindful photography field guide. And this is a quote that was kind of a download from God. Whoops. Yeah, the artwork doesn't have to match the sofa. Okay. It really doesn't. In fact, this whole no matchy thing and preparing for this, so there's that green again. It's everywhere. Like, that green that you can't match with anything. And that used to drive me nuts. But I grew to just love that jacket right there. And I just throw it on, not worrying about what was underneath it. And that's me with Caleb right now. And we're both a couple of oddballs. And yet all of it seems to work together for good nonetheless. Back in college, I was going through a rough time. And being on my own, I was starting to realize what it was going to take, or trying to cope with some of the struggles that I was having, emotional struggles that I was having. that the depression and anxiety, I can trace it back to earlier than this for sure, but it was getting really intense and a lot of partying going on, a lot of hell raising. But at the same time, I loved school, I loved college, and I liked being there. This beautiful, wonderful school that I went to in Texas. And during that time, during the most difficult of times, there were two sanctuaries that I went to. One of them was actually a sanctuary. It was a chapel at this university, and I remember going in there, and it was always very dark inside there. And say I'd go in at night or something, and there would be real dimly lit light at the front of the chapel, and there'd be a Bible there. There would be a prayer request book right there, and I would go in there and I would write my prayer requests down, and I'd go and flip that deal down and get on my knees, and I would pray and I would pray and I would pray. So that sanctuary was a sanctuary big time. And the other place was the art building. I didn't major in art, but I took a lot of art classes, and that was such a sanctuary to me. I felt like I was around like-minded people and really crazy, quirky personalities like that of this precious teacher of mine named Elizabeth Ridenhour. Miss Ridenhour, I can't wait to see you in heaven. What an impact you made on me. Look at this 40 years later. Yeah. I'm still talking about you. And she was this woman that looked like she just stepped right out of Madison Avenue. And she had such a great, larger than life personality, shorter, blondish gray hair, big black glasses, and but thin and tall, and a big wide black belt. I remember, for instance, and you would go in here. I came there like, art. I got this, baby. I won the high school art show. Everybody talked about how Joe's paintings were just so great and everything. So I had it down. I had taken art classes just about every year in high school, junior high, you name it, even as a kid. And so I'm gonna like mop the floor with these college art students. Went in there with that big of a head, but yet Miss Ridenhour, her famous saying was, "No matchy, no matchy." And what that meant was stop with the perfectionism, stop with the rules, do this and don't care about it. In fact, this whole story is also, I talk in the book about my buddy Andrew and how he had the no matchy thing down pat. He was like the thrift store clothes type dude, that cool thrift store look. And Andrew, I called it the uncaring look, like he got dressed in the dark, but he pulled it off. He pulled it off like a boss. So I just love that. So that was the introduction to me of no matchy in the artistic sense. One of the cool things about writing a book is that you get to, one, put your thoughts down in writing and like really get them down and challenge those thoughts, and then you publish the book. So there it is, boom, this is what I wrote, and it's in black and white and you can buy it, right? And as time goes on, after you publish the book, some things you might challenge. That really hasn't been the case with me so much. The totality of the book, it's actually kind of freaky because it just feels like it was a download from God. I would love for this experience for you, especially if you're just really struggling with hopelessness, for you to take on a project like this of writing a book or taking on a big project right there and bring it to completion. That was something that I struggled with, really completing something. And I did that here. But it's not like have been dispelled, but what has happened is I've gone, whoa, yes, not only is that true, but and just realize even more the depths of the truth that I was dealing with. Each practice in the mindful photography field guide goes through 3 steps: the focus, capture, shine. Focus on body and surroundings, capture the present moment, not capture a pretty photo, but capture the present moment. We're going to talk about that. And then the third step is to shine our light and to bless someone. So, in the first step of focus on body surrounding, remember that? There we go. Hand on the heart, 3 belly breaths. And we're going to note our level of peace. Is it, maybe 1 is 2 is and 3 is pretty good. It's important to note like that because that way we have something to compare. So even the simple hand on the heart 3 belly breaths, just to kind of make a middle note. I'm feeling kind of rough right now. Put it to the test. Don't believe anything that I'm telling you. Put it to the test. When you take opposite action and don't buy into what your emotions are telling me, then you're going to be ready, and your humility and your ego is going to be downsized enough to try some of these things that seem a little silly. The second step is to capture the present moment. So we're going to take this world's greatest distraction device and we're going to put it on airplane mode. And that's our way of signaling to ourselves and to the universe that, hey, I mean business, and I'm not going to let these thoughts run roughshod over me, that I'm going to actually take action and cooperate with God and take this time to kind of remove my worries and my thoughts, drop down into my body and senses, and I'm going to take this time to take some mindful photos. So we're just going to go out and photograph mindfully, not out of ego, not anticipating sharing these on social media. We don't do that. But we're just going to photograph mindfully. And I'm going to frame something up. Click. And I'm breathing right now. And even as I speak to you, and I'm on camera right now, live, I'm actually feeling a little more kind of integration into my senses. Forced me to check in on what I'm doing with my body. And I've realized I'm a little tense up here. Hey, Frank, what's happening? Loosen up. Woo, loosen up like Liz Ridenhour. No matchy, no matchy, slosh, slosh, slosh. Have fun. Make some mistakes. Should have taken one of these, but here, I'll just do it right now. You go over here and, oh, yeah, there's a good one. Doink. Take a photograph off kilter. Go take a landscape shot that's like 3 degrees off. Like for me to do that, that would be like akin to a nervous breakdown. That perfectionism, I realized after a time of what that perfectionism really is. It's a lack of trust in God. It's not a badge of honor. It signals truly lack of trust and that I know better. I think that a lot of my perfectionism is trauma born, tough stuff that happened early in life. And then it was up to me to make sure that I did things perfect enough so no bad things were going to happen. So I equated perfection to not getting in trouble, getting mom's approval, to getting accolades from other people, art, big time. And so even in my career, I have a long career in graphic design, videography, photography, social media, all of those things, but big time graphic design. Like I had some very long term clients that did publishing work for. So, give you an example, Think Cigar Company in San Antonio, Texas. Folks, go on to thinkcigarcompany.com and order yourself some cigars if you're a cigar smoker. I have done this catalog for decades. I've done hundreds and hundreds of these catalogs. So let me tell you something. When you're doing this kind of graphic design work, and they're going to print tens of thousands of these catalogs, you better believe I am going to be a perfectionist, right? I mean, look at the, what are we, look at it, 3,000% enlargement. This is the level of perfection that I kind of have to adhere to with this. But really, I started thinking about that word and thinking there's really, even in the book that I'm showing you right here, there's really a difference between perfectionism and precision. So maybe what I'm talking about with my design work and kind of where my commercial art and doing art for a living has taken me, that yeah, there's going to be perfectionism in there, but that's going to be me and my ego. But precision is just making sure that everything lines up precisely like it should in a commercial project like that. But I realized that it had so much to do with ego and my lack of trust in God, because I needed to outline and architect things. And unless I did it just right, unless I do these streams just right, unless I, do enough social posts and all the different things that I have to do, unless I do those perfectly, I'm not going to I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm not going to receive God's blessings. And that, hence the lack of trust in God. So what's the solution? I obviously can't promise salvation or a cure for all your ills through mindful photography, but it's part of the solution because it helps us open ourselves up to God's beauty and God's love. I'm going to hit this first. So, any self help program, any group program, any coaching, therapy, whatever, if it doesn't have a step, if it doesn't end up on us blessing others and serving others, it's going to be worthless. I'm sorry, because God commands us the great commandment to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, body, strength, everything, and to love our neighbor as ourselves, which means we're supposed to love ourselves too, right, Frankie? So that's why the third step in mindful photography is to take one of our photos that we've taken and to share it with someone with a little love note, with a little note of encouragement. Hey, brother, I just want you to know when you picked up the phone yesterday, when I called and you listened to me when I was going through that struggle, that really meant a lot to me, man. And I know that God was really working through you to bless me. So thank you. Thank you. Now, each one of these practices in the field guide has a few journal prompts at the end. Journaling is so critically important. I do it every single day. Those of you who haven't found the blessing of write it down, that blue ink on paper, you'll notice the difference in your level of peace when you do this. So each one of these practices has these journal prompts. So yeah, so does the idea of wearing clothes that don't match, does that make you cringe? Yes, that really, really, really makes me cringe. And where do those rules come from? Where do they come from? I think of, whoops, I think of my dad and this funny that I make of him. I love you, Dad. I can't wait to see you in heaven. But Dad was colorblind, and so he would come up with these outfits, and mom would sometimes say, "Wally, that didn't work," because he could not, like, reds and greens maybe. There were things that just looked, grayish and just like nothing for him. So, yeah, dad. Let's take a look at a few photos that I queued up for you folks. Baffin Bay in Texas, Texas coastline there. So who decided to paint that funky green and purple? Ah, yeah. This is up on Aspen Mountain, and I just loved how the red in those chairs just punctuated that scene. They didn't match. Old truck ranch that I lived at in this trailer, right in that pasture right there. And I would see that truck and just notice the orange. I love that color of orange and how it just pops in that those surroundings. This was out in Utah and a nighttime shot. I mean, these are so amazing. The idea that you can take these dark nighttime. It was pitch dark except for the moonlight, and just how they're able to capture a shot like that. But the sign came out with this kind of neonish greenish color, and that's why I shot it. So there's that jacket again, and Caleb, and just look at all of the crazy colors in that whole scene right there. You find so many times you find moss and this growth on trees that's just so vivid. It's hard to believe that it's natural and organic. Like we saw earlier, you always find this no matchy thing in this construction stuff that's meant to glow and stand out and keep us noticing it, right? The proof's in the pudding. I told you I'd never preach anything that I didn't notice or that didn't help me myself. So this is going to be an example of something that you'll know now that it works and that this is a thing. Because when you go out after watching this video right here, you're going to start noticing that. I was leaving the hot springs pool, and there was just one of those shims that's meant to go under the door, to keep the door, and it was this bright green color, and just boom, I caught it. I've been thinking about this no matchy all week. I caught it out of the corner of my eye. And that's all mindful photography is. It's noticing. I want y'all to go out and notice, because when we notice God's beauty all around us and colors and what makes that happen, and wow, look at this color, man, praise God. And you take these photos and you take some time, and you're noticing your breath, and then you take these photos and you curious, oh, I may have taken 3 or 4 photos of this scene, but I whittled it down to just this one. And now I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the orange, looking at the orange, looking at that green, right? And that's all I'm looking at. No, actually, I hadn't even noticed this before. I'm here with you guys. I'm noticing, look at that rad lens flare and glare off of that glass up there. That's part of what makes this a cool photo, because that light over there is bouncing, and see, it's putting that hard highlight here. There's no direct sunlight. That sun, all of that blast of hard sunshine is coming off of the sun, bouncing off that one place on the window. And right now, dynamically, even in front of you, I'm seeing God's beauty, and I'm feeling it in my body. Here we go again with these signs. Those signs are so interesting. And now you're going to believe me, you notice them already because you obey them. You're out in traffic but why is it that you notice them? Why do they stand out? And I promise you, for a while, you're not going to see one of these signs the same again. They're just bold colors. It's just bold colors next to brown. Love this. We have a project here in the city of Glenwood Springs of all those electrical boxes, and artists got to pitch doing a design on each one of them. And there it is, these bright, vivid colors. And then to the top and to the left, you have these more natural muted colors. And funky things like this. Like, who else noticed this? Who did that? Who even designed that icon right there? It's really cool. But here we have red and pink. Yuck. We already talked about that. We talked about that too. Here, this was just painted, of course, you know how they do in construction, right on the sidewalk. Just notice it instead of going, yuck, gross. Take a photo. Maybe there's a composition that can be made out of those no matchy things. And here again, the red, and then the got the muted colors. This isn't an award-winning photo. It's just something that I took a minute and noticed. And here are these things again. Such just crazy mixtures of color, but I got in close and made it sort of seamless. So it just represented colors, not some kind of an object or structure. I have this thing for old 240s, 260s, 280Zs. So every time I see something like that, take a snap. Part of the reason why I snapped that is because it was just this color that really punctuated that natural scene right there. But that's not where it ended. I connected with my son Caleb as a result of this. Every time I take a photo of something like that, he's in the car business, I send it to him, and there's a little interaction. And that's that sharing my love with someone else. Friends, I'm so glad that you joined me today, re exploring color. I want to leave you maybe with a little homework assignment. Check out the book of Romans in chapter 8. That's where Paul talks about all things working together for good for those who believe. All of the sorrow that I went through over this period of time of kind of shattered dreams and a broken heart, I couldn't imagine in my wildest imagination how God could weave those things together for good. How God could take this messiness of this guy who struggled so much with depression and anxiety. That's still a part of my life. Paul talked about that thorn in his side, whatever that thing was that he prayed 3 times for God to remove, and God didn't remove it. And then Paul realizing that the very thing that the very idea that it wasn't removed was the thing that made him depend on God's grace even more. So there's a lot of context around that verse that's so comforting to many of us, that God works all things together for good for those who believe. And we can just anchor on that. But that has to be a decision, like the mindset of who God is and God's mindset. And God's mindset is that God is a God of redemption. And in my case, all of that tragedy that I went through and those struggles of really severe depression and anxiety, I've been redeemed from that. My relationship with God is so much deeper now. The things that I'm doing to help other people, put my thoughts in writing, there's no way this this would have come about in that state that I was in earlier. It's just hard to say. I was so directionless and hopeless. So, in order for us to really own that, we have to buy into a couple of things about God. And this is your decision, and it's my decision too. We can decide that God is a vengeful God, an unfair God, shake our fist at God for the bad things that happen in our lives. We can do it. I've done it. We recently learned about that whole story of the disciples going across the sea and Jesus being in the boat with them asleep and them waking him up. Jesus, don't you even care about us? We're going to die. And he didn't even address them, but he addressed the storm instead. He silenced the wind, and he rebuked the wind, and he silenced and hushed the waves. And that's what he pointed out. That so me shaking my fist at God has really shaken it in the wrong direction. Instead, I've learned to shake it, say my fist at the enemy and say, no, you can't have me today. The nervousness that I go through sometimes before these streams. I did it this morning. Nope, sorry, you're not gonna get away with it today. I am going to believe, and this is what I'm going to believe in, that if God be for me, who can possibly be against me? So, one, that God is for me. And then the second thing is, let me read this little part for you, and then I'll close this with a blessing. And this is a guy who sometimes stood waist deep in sewer in prison. This is a guy who suffered and suffered and suffered, got beat up and stoned and jailed. But yet, here's his attitude, and here is his absolute conviction that nothing can separate us from the love of God. For I am convinced that neither death nor life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height or depth nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. So I just declare that over you this morning, that God loves you and there's nothing you can do about it. And it's up to you to recognize that and declare that God is for you. And if you declare that God is for you, then it's a lot easier for us to swallow the idea that God is working all things together for our good. But I'm living proof. I'm going to leave you with a blessing. It goes something like this: the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Hey, it's a huge blessing when you like and subscribe, share this. I'd love for you to comment on this video. Tell me your thoughts about how God has taken something that seemed to be a mismatch and he's worked it together for good. So I look forward to seeing you next Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain. And between now and then, get out there and shine your light.